beating, the county grand jury signaled that will be the extent of the criminal case. 17 other so-called police bystanders at the beating scene will not be indicted, a development noted with frustration.
On March 3, 1991, Rodney King and two of his friends that were with him were stopped by 4 police officers after a high-speed chase on I-210. After King resisted to lay flat on the ground, he claimed that he was afraid of white officers and that he was trying to defend himself. One of the officers tased him twice, and then 2 officers beat him repeatedly with batons. Racial slurs were yelled at Rodney King as the officers were beating him nearly to death. The officers were accusing Rodney King of having the advantage to attack because they assumed he had taken PCP, also known as angel dust. George Holliday was awakened by the police helicopter and high sirens. He ran to grab his VHS camera and to record the incident. He later turned it into multiple news channels where they released the footage worldwide.
Rodney King was born April 2, 1965 in Sacramento, California. When Rodney King was a teenager, he dropped out of John Muir High School after having a baby girl with his girlfriend Carmen Simpson. He later married Danetta Lyles and had a baby daughter. He eventually divorced Danetta and married Crystal Waters and also had a daughter. This marriage also ended in divorce. The 2 daughters from the marriages are Laura Dean King, known for writing and filming Latasha Harlan's documentary, and Lori King. On November 3, 1989, Rodney King, age 24, robbed a store while threatening the store owner with an iron bar. He stole $200 in cash and was caught and convicted with 2 years imprisonment. King was released a year later on December 27, 1990. Rodney King was known as a victim of police brutality in 1991, becoming an American symbol of injustice. On June 17, 2012, Rodney King passed away from a drowning incident in his pool. His legacy still lives on to this day.
After Holliday grabbed his VHS camera and videotaped the beatings of Rodney King, Holliday didn't know what to do with the video recording. Holliday went to a local TV station, KTLA. KTLA edited that 9-minute video down to a 44-second clip and aired it that same night. The shocking video captured by Holliday caused outrage throughout Los Angeles. With the subject being so heavily represented in the media, many people followed and listened carefully for any new information that they could get. And on April 29, 1992, the 4 white police officers that had savagely beaten Rodney King were found not guilty. The outrage began again. Angry citizens, the disenfranchised, and even opportunists took to the street of LA. They looted, vandalized, and set fires for 6 days straight. The riots caused harm to the environment, the economy, and many people, with more than 50 riot-related deaths recorded and 2,000 injuries, and with almost $1 billion in damages. Many lost businesses, family, lovers, and friends during these riots.
I am here with
Stacy Kuhn.
What is your rank?
I'm a sergeant.
What happened on that day, March 3rd?
Rodney King and 2 of his friends stopped by 4 police officers after a high-speed chase on I-210. After King resisted to lay down flat on the ground, and he claimed that he was afraid of white police officers, and he was trying to defend himself. One of the officers tased him twice, and then the 2 other officers beat him repeatedly with batons.
What were you convicted for after the encounter of Rodney King?
Willing, permitting, and failing to stop on unlawful assault.
Do you regret your actions on March 3rd?
I have no regrets.
Why is that?
Police must sometimes use force. The prohibited chokehold must be replaced with other means of subduing suspects who resist arrest. I think community police is a nice thing if it's workable. The new chief is nice, but nothing has been done to address the use of force. The policeman has no more tools today than he had a year ago.
So you're saying it was a justified beating on Mr. King?
I would say I didn't do anything wrong. I acted in good faith.
This was Stacy Kuhn with the LAPD after the incident of the beating of Rodney King. Previous racial violence in the United States of America between different races was a major issue after the Rodney King beating. On March 13th, 1991, Latasha Harlins, a 15-year-old young black female, was shot and killed in a liquor store. The unfortunate death followed an altercation at a Korean liquor shop in Los Angeles, California. The store owner, Soon Ja-doon, accused Harlins of stealing a bottle of orange juice, but in fact she had put it in her backpack and walked towards the cash register. As Harlins went to go pay for it, but Ju grabbed her sweater in a violent altercation. Following this, Harlins punched the storekeeper in the face and left. As she was leaving, Du grabbed a pistol and fired the first shot in the back of her head. Du was sentenced to 16 years in prison, along with $500 in fines and $400 in community service. The echoes of historical racial violence against people of minority descent can be heard still today. Although these acts may come in different shapes, it shows the discrimination still exists today in some degree. Looking at past interactions involving the Black Lives Matter movement, the organization who calls for action against police brutality, although there are many key examples of this all across our country, the case regarding Devon Bailey is a special one where Bailey was shot and killed by a Colorado Springs police officer. In 2019, he was a 19-year-old black man from Denver, Colorado. Police were responding to a 911 call regarding a mugging and an assault case. Bailey was seen by an officer in the area and was non-compliant when requested to keep his hands out of his pocket. In the dispatch call, a caller described multiple black men walking down the road and one of them had a firearm. Police had reasonable suspicion to ask Bailey to take his hands out of his pockets. Finally, Bailey cooperated by taking his hands out of his pockets, but as soon as an officer started to move in and pat him down, he took off in a sprint. After being pursued by the officers, verbal warnings were given, telling him to stop running. Bailey reached into his waistband and grabbed a gun. Officers were quick to respond and shot him after seeing him digging around in the front part of his shorts. Now, this tells us that not all shootings are racially motivated, but instead, many suggest an underlying mesh of short tempers and lack of consideration in resulting in death.
The USA National Vital Statistics System, the NVSS, extracted and standardized the age, sex, U.S. date of birth, registration, year of death, and race and ethnicity, non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black, non-Hispanic of other races, and Hispanic of any race, and estimated the deaths due to police violence of all states, ages, sexes, and racial ethnic groups from 1980 to 2019 across the USA. Across all races and states in the U.S., they estimated about 30,800 deaths from police violence between 1980 and 2018. This represents 17,100 more deaths than reported by the NVSS. The age standardized mortality rate due to police violence was highest in non-Hispanic and black people.
A lot has changed since the Rodney King beating, and a lot has stayed the same. For example, the police have been given live body cams. This could help change and can prove what truly happened during police events. Like, for example, George Floyd's case, the police officers had body cams, and this helped see what truly happened during the arrest. Therefore, if Rodney King's beating never happened, then we probably would have not had the idea to use body cams for police officers. And not as many cases of police brutality would have been shown to the public. The police brutality has stayed the same. For example, the George Floyd case, the police officers was caught kneeling on George Floyd, and this proves that the police still haven't changed their form of control. Does this make you think the police should change their form of control?